Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive, all about the philosophies behind fitness and well-being. We're going to explore how different cultures throughout history have viewed this idea of living a good and balanced life, and we've got some really interesting sources to dig into today. We've got an ancient Stoic exercise guide, some global fitness trends from all over the world, and even some philosophical writings on exercise and well-being. By the end of this deep dive, you'll understand not only what different cultures believe about fitness, but why those beliefs exist, and what it all reveals about how humans across time have tried to live well-rounded lives.
I think what's fascinating is that even though the methods and practices vary so much, the human need to find meaning and balance through physical activity seems to be like this universal thing, don't you think?
Oh yeah, for sure. It really does make you think about like the bigger picture. So why don't we start by going way back in time to ancient Rome with this Stoic exercise guide. It's called 10 Essential Stoic Exercises. And you might be surprised to hear this, but we're not talking about like burpees or squats or anything like that.
Right. The Stoics were really all about self-control, and they saw this deep connection between the mind and body. So these exercises are designed to strengthen the mind, to cultivate virtues like wisdom and courage. And they believed it would then have like a direct impact on a person's physical well-being as well.
You know, one of the exercises that really caught my eye was the dichotomy of control. It basically reminds us to focus on what we can control, like our effort, our attitude, and to kind of let go of stressing over all those things that are outside of our control.
It's a really powerful concept. And it's actually still super relevant to how a lot of us approach fitness today.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. So much of the fitness industry preys on our insecurities about things we can't change,
Yeah.
like genetics or aging. But the Stoics would say, hey, just focus on showing up. Focus on making healthy choices. The rest is out of your hand.
Like they were totally ahead of their time with all this focus on like achieving the perfect body and everything. There's another exercise that stood out to me too. It's called the contemplation of the sage. Have you heard of this one? So basically, it encourages us to imagine a role model, someone we really admire for their virtue and character, and then think about how they would act in our situation.
It's almost like having a mentor in your mind, guiding you. And you know what's interesting? This actually connects with a lot of modern psychology today. We know how powerful positive self-talk is, visualization, all those things can really help us achieve our goals. And the Stoics were onto this like centuries ago.
It really makes you think. How much do you think these ancient ideas still influence our modern fitness goals today? Like, do you think they have any real practical value for us?
I think they absolutely do. Imagine you're struggling to stick to a workout routine. The dichotomy of control. It can help you reframe how you're looking at the situation. So instead of getting discouraged because you're not seeing progress as quickly as you want, you can focus on, okay, did I make it to the gym today? Did I choose a healthy meal? Did I move my body? Those are the wins that really matter. And they build up over time.
I like that. It's like a way to reframe those challenges. And I guess the contemplation of the sage. You could use that to like stay motivated too.
Absolutely.
Like if you're thinking about skipping a workout, you could ask yourself, okay, what would my fitness role model do?
Right. It can help you stay aligned with your goals, even when you're just not feeling it.
It's pretty amazing how these like really old ideas can still be so useful. Makes you wonder what else we've forgotten from the past. But I want to switch gears for a minute and look at things from like a global perspective. Our next source is called A Global Perspective on Fitness, and it highlights just how different approaches to well-being can be around the world.
It really shows how much our cultures shape our relationship with exercise.
Yeah. For example, it talks about how in the West, we often have this really individualistic focus on achievement, like running marathons or bodybuilding. And then you contrast that with East Asian concepts like Tai Chi and Qigong, which are all about balance and energy flow.
It's a pretty stark contrast. The West is often like push harder, no pain, no gain. And Eastern traditions are more about working with your body, harmonizing with your body's natural rhythms.
It's so interesting how these cultural values show up in how we think about fitness. But it's not just East versus West. There are tons of unique approaches out there. The source talks about this Scandinavian concept called friluftsliv, which basically means open-air living.
Yeah, it's all about spending time in nature, immersing yourself in nature. It's not just exercise. It's a way of life.
It really makes you think about how our environment, even the climate we live in, can impact what kinds of fitness we're drawn to. Someone living somewhere with long winters, they might naturally do more indoor activities, and someone living in a sunny coastal area might be more into outdoor stuff.
Totally. There's no one right way to approach fitness. It's about finding what works for you, what aligns with your values. and your environment.
I love that. So we've talked about ancient Stoic practices and global trends. What about the philosophers? Did any of them have anything to say about exercise and well-being?
Oh yeah, for sure. They had a lot to say, actually. Our next two sources: the philosophical pursuit of wellness through exercise, and what five philosophers have to say about physical exercise. Take us on a journey through history and different schools of thought.
This is where it gets really interesting. We get to see how some of the greatest minds thought about the connection between the mind and body.
Yeah, it's amazing to see how philosophers from such different times and cultures were wrestling with a lot of the same questions that we're still asking today.
So the sources cover a wide range of thinkers, from ancient Greece all the way to the 19th century. One that really stood out to me was Aristotle. He saw exercise as being like super important for having a healthy mind.
He did. Aristotle believed in this idea of the golden mean, which basically means everything in moderation, and that includes physical activity. He thought it was essential for achieving eudaimonia, which means like a state of flourishing, or living well. And for him, physical health was the foundation for everything else. Intellectual development, moral development, everything.
Makes sense. And then there's Seneca, the Stoic philosopher. He was also a big advocate for a balanced approach to exercise, and he emphasized the mental benefits.
Right. It seems like there's a theme here.
Yeah, for sure.
Seneca believed that when you challenge yourself physically, it can actually strengthen your mind and prepare you for all the tough stuff that life throws your way. He saw exercise as a way to build endurance, not just physical endurance, but mental resilience too. And this kind of ties back to that Stoic idea of the dichotomy of control. We can control our effort, our discipline, how we respond to challenges, both in the gym and in life.
It's amazing how all these ideas connect, even across different philosophers and different time periods. And we can't forget about Confucius. He was all about harmony and balance. I love that quote of his. It does not matter how slowly you go, as long as you do not stop. It's like a perfect reminder to just keep going.
His teachings remind us that fitness is a journey, not a destination. It's about finding ways to build healthy habits into your everyday life, rather than trying to achieve some perfect ideal, and finding joy in the process. That's key.
Yeah, I love that. It's about the journey, but not all the philosophers were on the same page.
Right. The sources also mention Schopenhauer, and he saw exercise as a way to escape from suffering.
Yeah, Schopenhauer, he had kind of a pessimistic view of things. He thought all human desires ultimately lead to dissatisfaction. So he saw exercise as just this temporary distraction from like the inherent pain of existence.
Wow, that's a really different way of looking at it. And then there's Nietzsche, the philosopher of the Übermensch. He was all about pushing yourself beyond limits to achieve your full potential.
Right. Nietzsche is a complex philosopher. People are still debating his ideas today. But in the context of fitness, you could see his philosophy as advocating for like physical excellence as part of this broader quest for self-mastery.
So we've got Aristotle and Confucius talking about balance, Seneca highlighting resilience, Schopenhauer seeing exercise as escapism, and Nietzsche saying we should push our boundaries. That's quite a range of perspectives. It is. It
Yeah.
really makes you wonder, where do you fit in on this spectrum? Which of these philosophies resonate with you and your approach to fitness and well-being?
That's a great question. And I think it's something for all our listeners to think about. As we move into the next part of our deep dive, welcome back to our deep dive. We've been on quite a journey so far. From ancient Stoic practices to global fitness trends, we even explored the ideas of some of history's greatest thinkers. It's amazing how much there is to consider when it comes to something as simple as exercise.
It is, isn't it?
So now I think it's time to step back and see what we can learn from all these different perspectives. What are some of the common threads that we're seeing?
Yeah, what kind of overarching insights can we gain from all this?
Where should we even begin?
Well, one thing that's really stood out to me is this idea of the mind-body connection. It seems to pop up everywhere we look.
Yeah, you're right. The Stoics were all about mental discipline. Eastern traditions focus on energy flow. Even Aristotle saw exercise as being essential for a healthy mind. It really does seem like this idea that our physical and mental well-being are connected. It's like a universal thing.
It's like that old saying, a sound mind and a sound body. And it's interesting because modern science is finally starting to catch up to what these ancient traditions have known for centuries. We're learning more and more about how exercise affects our brain chemistry. It reduces stress, improves mood. It can even boost cognitive function.
So it's not just about building muscles or losing weight. It's about like taking care of our brains, building mental resilience.
Exactly. And that leads to another big takeaway. fitness is about so much more than just the physical.
What do you mean?
It's connected to our values, our
Yeah.
culture,
Yeah.
even our sense of personal fulfillment.
So it's really about finding a way to move your body that feels aligned with who you are.
Yeah, it has to align with your values,
Hmm.
your beliefs, and what brings you joy.
I think it's easy to get caught up in all the messages we see out there, about how we should look, what we should weigh.
The fitness industry can be really good at making us feel insecure.
Totally.
But true fitness should be about empowerment, not about feeding those insecurities.
It should be about celebrating what our bodies can do.
Yeah. Honoring our bodies,
Yeah.
respecting our limits.
Which brings us to another important point: balance and moderation.
Right. It doesn't matter if it's Aristotle's golden mean, or the Stoic emphasis on self-control, or the East Asian idea of harmony. There's this universal wisdom in avoiding extremes, finding a sustainable approach.
It's like you said before, fitness is a journey, not a destination.
Exactly.
And I think it's so easy to fall into that all or nothing mentality, which can lead to burnout or even injuries.
It's so important to listen to your body
Yeah.
and respect its signals.
And you know what's interesting? I'm thinking back to those Stoic exercises we talked about. They can actually be really helpful for cultivating that balanced mindset,
Oh, yeah? Cool.
like the dichotomy of control. It can help us let go of those unrealistic expectations and focus on the things we can control.
And the contemplation of the sage can help us stay focused on our values, so we don't get swept away by every new fitness trend that comes along.
It's like we've come full circle. We started with ancient wisdom, and now we're back to the Stoics, realizing their insights are still so relevant today.
That's the power of philosophy. It transcends time and culture.
So as we're thinking about all this, how do we define fitness within the context of living a meaningful life?
That's a big question, and I think it's a really personal one. There's no right or wrong answer,
Yeah.
but maybe. By considering all these different philosophies and looking at these diverse cultural perspectives, we can each start to figure out what fitness means for us as individuals.
So where do we even begin?
I think a good starting point is to ask ourselves, what's really important to me? What are my values? What brings me joy? And how can fitness, in the broadest sense of the word, help me live a life that feels meaningful?
Those are really powerful questions.
It's so easy to get caught up in external goals,
Yeah.
what society tells us we should be doing. But ultimately, fitness should be about aligning our choices with our values.
Absolutely.
And it's about recognizing that it's a lifelong journey.
We're not a destination.
It's about finding a sustainable path that nourishes our minds and bodies and allows us to thrive in every aspect of our lives.
It takes the pressure off, trying to be perfect,
Exactly.
and it makes it more about finding joy in the process.
Finding joy in moving your body, connecting with your physical self.
That's what makes it feel less like a chore and more like a celebration of life.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
And that celebration can look different for everyone. It could be hiking in nature, or doing yoga, or dancing with friends, or even just going for a walk in the park.
It's about finding what makes you feel alive.
And what works for you might change over time.
Right. What feels good in your 20s
Is it?
might not feel the same in your 40s or 60s.
That's so true.
It's all about staying open, exploring different options, and adjusting as you go.
Listening to your body, honoring where you are in each stage of life.
And that brings us back to balance.
Yeah.
Not just balance between the mind and body, but balance in how we approach fitness throughout our lives.
Finding that sweet spot between pushing yourself and knowing your limits.
Between striving for growth
Mm.
and accepting where you're at.
It's a beautiful dance.
It is.
And it's a dance that's unique to each of us.
That's a perfect way to transition into the final part of our deep dive. We've explored the philosophies, the cultural influences, and the personal journeys that shape how we think about fitness and well-being. Now it's time to turn the lens inward and ask ourselves, how do we define fitness in our own lives?
I'm ready. Let's do it. We've learned so much in this deep dive.
Yeah, we really have.
From ancient Stoic exercises to global fitness trends and all those philosophical ideas about well-being. It's been a journey.
It really has. One thing that keeps coming back to me is that even with all the different practices and cultures, there's this shared human desire to find meaning through movement. It's like we're all searching for something deeper. When we engage with our physical selves,
It's not just about how we look or how much we can lift or how fast we can run.
Right.
It's about something more.
it's about how we choose to move through the world,
Yeah.
how we build strength and resilience, not just physically, but mentally too.
And I think what's become really clear is that there's no single right way to do it.
Absolutely. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to fitness.
What matters most is finding what works for you,
What brings you joy,
what helps you feel your best.
inside and out.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one last thought.
Knowing everything we've talked about today,
How will you define fitness in your own life?
will you draw inspiration from the Stoics?
Will you explore Eastern practices?
Or maybe you'll create your own unique path, combining different ideas,
No matter what you choose, remember that it's a journey.
not a destination.
There will be challenges along the way.
But keep moving forward
Keep exploring.
and keep striving to be the best version of yourself.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of fitness and well-being. Until next time, stay curious
Stay active.
and stay true to yourself.